and new books for fall 2014. This is literature. I've got a few classics and one sci-fi and some poetry and plays. So here's a collection from Oxford University Press, Oxford's World Classics. These are 3 utopias or dystopias. We've got Sir Thomas More's Utopia, we have Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, and we have Neville's Isle of Pines. So I do know that Sir Thomas More was very religious, and his Utopia is a way of trying to design a perfect society with religion, but it also criticizes what was going on in his era. And I guess Thomas More invented the term utopia, which actually means nowhere. It means it's not possible, and it's an ideal that's not attainable in practice, which you always hear that kind of the theory-practice dichotomy. That an ideal or perfection are not possible, and then of course what's the point of using such a word if they're not possible? I think they should be attainable within reason. Francis Bacon, of course, was an important beginner of science in the Renaissance, and his New Atlantis is his speculations on what a scientific society would look like, which is interesting because that, and I don't know if he talks about it, and he should, but it seems like that's a precursor to Skinner, B.F. Skinner's work called Walden 2, which I believe was his conception of what, because Skinner is early psychology, behaviorism. What Skinner's point of view would be on what the world could be like with these new findings in psychology. So I wonder if B.F. Skinner notes Francis Bacon, New Atlantis, because that would seem to be a precursor. I don't know much about Neville's The Isle of Pines. I don't even know who Neville is, but it does mention that it is a precursor to Defoe's Robinson Crusoe, and talks about the problems of colonialism and things like that, sexism, racism, stuff like that. So anyways, that should be a nice collection of 3 utopias that I hope to get into at some point. Here is a fairly well-known, I guess, movie. I assume it was a movie after the book. Usually that's what happens. I think it's very, very rare that a book is written after a movie. It's usually the other way around. This is by Alice Walker. So, of course, this has to do with racism. I think that's fairly common. Here's a science fiction book, Battlefield Earth. I can't remember where I picked this up. L. Ron Hubbard. L. Ron Hubbard is the Scientology guy. This is a fairly massive book, so it better be worthwhile. I'm not at all fazed by big books because I read things like Atlas Shrugged or other giant tomes like that. Nonfiction are usually fairly lengthy, so it's not a big deal to read or like Crime and Punishment or Anna Karenina, although I only made it through 2/3 of Anna Karenina and I just couldn't deal with it anymore. But anyways, I'm wondering what this science fiction book will be like by Hubbard. I don't know if he wrote science fiction first and then started into his Scientology, but some poetry by Yeats, W.B. Yeats. I don't know much about him other than I assume he's British, but I thought I might try some poetry. I'm not so sure how much ideas can be generated from poetry. I think they are more likely to conceptualize already known ideas into creative. I find poetry a work of creativity, not an intellectual ideas generating discipline. So, anyways, maybe I'm completely wrong on that, but I guess that would suggest that poetry is just entertainment. Then it's not something that is intellectually building, but because I'm interested in intellectual building. And then here's 6 plays by Corneille and Racine. I believe they're both French. And apparently the good one in here is Sina. So I'm going to have to try that one out. It's a play. So this is nice little, the Modern Library, Random House, these little books like that. Not that I care too much about that. I know some people like to collect different similar bindings of books, but that doesn't matter. Anyways, that's all for new books for literature for fall 2014.